conquest selling is for the birds. But what are you going to do when the boss man calls you in and says to you,
Al, I got a prospect I want you to go to work on. He's pretty influential around this town. It would do us a lot of good if we could get him behind the wheel of a Desoto. And I think you're the boy who can do it. Right now, he's driving a 53 Olds 98. And, of course, they're pushing him hard to trade it in on a new 98. But so far, no luck. And I think I know why. He's never been one to settle for second best when he's got all the facts. And I think he's just unsure enough about the new Olds that he's running kind of scared. So if you will add up all the Desoto plus benefits that he'll be most interested in, I think you can sell him, Al. It's sure worth a try. What do you say?
well, I guess the first thing to do is find out what this guy will get on a 55 Desoto that he didn't have on his 53 Olds and wouldn't get on a 55 Olds. Let's see. No question about the Desoto being more car. It's longer and wider than the 98 ever was. Weighs more, too. If those don't count as comfort pluses, I'll eat my data book. And horsepower? Well, Olds advertises all of 2 horses more than the Desoto. And so what? Your engine's got to be free of carbon to deliver advertised horsepower. And how can an engine stay carbon-free when it's got lopsided carbon-collecting combustion chambers like the rockets? Hey, that gives me an idea. I think I'll ask this guy how often he's had to have his carbon blown out in the last 2 years. More than once, I'll bet, if he does much city driving anyway. And he wouldn't do any better with a 55 rocket, because it's basically the same old engine that's going to keep on collecting the same old power-stealing carbon in the same old knock-knock way. Wait till I tell him you never have to get the carbon blown out of our Fireflite engine, that our dome-shaped combustion chambers won't even give the darn stuff a chance to form. Why, we get the same sharp performance at 50,000 miles that we do at 500. And what's more, we get it on regular gas. That higher-priced premium stuff is strictly for the rockets. Chances are this guy never even heard of an engine breathing. But you never can tell, especially if he likes to weigh the facts like the boss says. So maybe I better give him the Fireflite valve story, too. That might help him understand why our engine keeps performing so much better than Oldsmobile's. And there are a lot of extras, too. Like we give them an oil bath air cleaner and an oil filter as standard equipment, while Olds charges them extra for the same things. And we give them such performance pluses as a double breaker distributor and a rotary oil pump and a floating oil intake in the crankcase. They can't buy these at any price on the Olds. Now, let's see. Oh, hi, Ruthie. You back in church already?
Yes, you heathen, I'm back. Tom sent me home in his new Olds. It's a 98, I think. He said you wanted to borrow it this afternoon for some kind of research or something.
Oh, yeah, good. That's the deal for the boss I was telling you about, Ruthie. You can help me out in this, too, if you will.
Well, I can tell you one thing right now. The darn thing rides like a Jeep. I don't know whether Tom has the tires blown up too hard or what, but it's the roughest riding thing I ever sat in.
You're just spoiled, Ruthie. Now that you're used to our Desoto, you think any other car rides like a truck. But that's what I've been telling you all along. The Desoto rides better simply because it's built better. We have a wider tread, front and rear, so the car has a more secure feeling. It's more stable.
What's tread?
Well, that's the distance between the wheels. In other words, we have a wider base for comfort. And the Desoto is a heavier car, and it's longer than Olds. It's engineered for a better distribution of the weight, and it has a far finer suspension system. Take shock absorbers alone. Desoto has Oriflows, so Desoto can handle any size bump better than an Olds can. It all adds up, as you found out, to a more comfortable ride.
Well, that all makes sense. But after all, Oldsmobile isn't a cheap car. I don't understand how they can get away with building it that way.
Well, Ruthie, that's quite a sight, isn't it? No, I hate to admit it, but they're both mighty smart-looking cars.
Both? Well, maybe there's something wrong with me, but I don't think the new Olds is smart-looking at all. It certainly is flashy and gaudy, but that's not what I call smart. In the first place, it's too square and boxy-looking. It reminds me of a woman with a terrible figure. No matter how she dolls herself up, poor thing, she still looks, well, she just doesn't look smart.
Mm-hmm. I see what you mean. Ah, but our DeSoto. Our DeSoto has the trim, slim lines of a Miss America. Just the right stuff in just the right places. A classy chassis ready to go to town, and looks it.
Well, that's right. You don't have to be funny. My heavens, haven't you ever stood back and really looked at the car you're selling? Who are you working for anyway?
Listen, honey, I appreciate your loyalty, but if you're going to be of any help, you've got to tell me what you really think, not what you think I want you to think. Sure, I know the Olds is garish and pushy looking, but you know darn well they're going to sell an awful lot of them, and you know...
Yes, but it'll be your fault if they sell one to your prospect. Here you have the most beautiful car on the road. Completely different from anything you had last year. Completely new, inside and out, the last word. And you worry about how many sales they're going to chalk up with this warmed-over version of their last year's circus wagon. Look at that. The same old chopped-off top and bulgy windshield. The same old clumsy rear end with a warty little taillight. The same old peekaboo fender cutouts, or whatever you call them. The silliest-looking things I ever saw.
Ah, Ruthie, fender skirts aren't important.
No? Well, I don't like them. And I don't like this droopy rat-tail business on the side either. I never saw such an awkward way of combining colors or using chrome. It pulls your eye to the rear of the car instead of leading it forward, so you get kind of a speed and reverse effect when you look at the Olds. It just can't compare with a dashing, full-length color sweep on a DeSoto. There's a two-tone treatment that's not just different. It's beautiful, too. And that, Mr. Albert, whether you believe it or not, is what I really think.
Okay, Ruthie, now that you've got that out of your system, what do you say we add up some DeSoto pluses that'll really hit home with this Oldsmobile owner I'm going to try to sell? Things like our wider wraparound windshield, for example. He'll be interested in that story because it means better driving visibility, safer driving for him. And then we have electric windshield wipers with a rheostat control and a cowl ventilator that you can close on the outside to keep the rain and dirt out. Olds doesn't have either of those pluses. Our safety rim wheel story is an eye-opener for most drivers, too. The average Oldsmobile owner probably never heard of safety rims, doesn't even know that kind of protection is available. Now, you might never guess it because we're neater looking on the outside, but we have more usable room inside the luggage compartment. Whether he travels a lot or just wants to toss in his golf clubs or an outboard motor, he'll like it. And for all I know, he's a great big guy. It may be darn important to him that the DeSoto has bigger door openings than the Olds and is easier to get in and out of without making a squeeze play out of it. One thing that's a lot bigger on the Olds is this cowl extension sticking out into the doorway. Good thing you've got a Silf-Life figure, Ruthie, or you'd never make it into this car.
You said it. And Tom's wife, isn't she expecting? This will be a real hazard for her 3 or 4 months from now.
Mm-hmm.
Which reminds me, don't you forget to talk to the prospect's wife. She'll have a lot to say about which car he buys, especially if you tell her she won't have anywhere near as much room in this car, like elbow room and leg room. I noticed that right away.
Not as roomy, that's for sure. DeSoto has more lap room between the steering wheel and the front seat cushion, and a greater range of seat adjustment, too. Of course, you got to remember, Ruthie, our car is 5.5 inches longer than this Oldsmobile. It just stands to reason that we'd have more room. How's the headroom? Pretty good?
About the same as ours, I'd say. Oh, but gosh. They don't seem to have any insulation at all up here under the roof.
A little paper and dum-dum, I imagine.
But no real fat padding like we have in our car. And these fabrics strike me as being on the cheap side, too. This flannel gets dirty fast. Our hard-finish material would stay much brighter, and you can whisk dirt right off. Of course, it seems almost unfair to compare Olds fabrics with ours. We have that silvery metallic thread woven through the seat material and the tricot knit rayon bolsters. My, they certainly out-glamour the Olds.
Well, now let's see how this buggy handles. I have an idea it could be Hydromatic that's making this friend of the boss's balk at buying another Olds. Here we go. That's funny. I know you can't start the engine unless you're in neutral, but where is neutral on this car? I move the lever and nothing happens. There isn't any indicator to tell you what position you're in.
Oh, yes, there is, dear. But the indicator doesn't work until you've turned the ignition on.
My gosh, you can't start the engine unless you're in neutral, and you can't tell where neutral is until you turn the ignition on.
Now, don't get excited, dear. Trial and error, you know. Let's move the lever way up to the top. I have a hunch that might be neutral.
Oh, yeah. Well, there we are. Well, now, let's see. Do I want D, S, or low? Well, I certainly don't need low. Wonder what S means. It doesn't stand for simplicity, that's for sure. Well, anyway.
Look out, you're in reverse. You moved the lever too far.
Oh, be quiet. I didn't hit anything. There aren't any gates on this darned indicator. How can you keep from moving the lever too far?
Well, you're supposed to look.
Why should I have to look? They ought to have their lever and indicator together in one place on the instrument panel, the way DeSoto does. Why, Fireflite's a cinch. We've only got one drive position to worry about instead of two. You just set it and forget it. Don't have to shift manually for top performance at any speed. And every position on our indicator is safety gated, so you can't possibly slide past where you want to go. And my gosh, listen to all that thumping going on under there when I get up speed on this car. Our car doesn't do that. Fireflite is smooth.
Yes, I complained to Tom about that, too.
Well, that's hydromatic, shifting up through all the gears.
Why don't we have to shift up?
We do have an upshift, sweetheart, but it's so smooth you don't feel it with Fireflite. And we need just one upshift because Fireflite has a torque converter to help build up your power. Hydromatic just has an out-of-date fluid coupling. They have to go through 2 or 3 upshifts.
Poor Tom and his olds. You know, after griping about the transmission and moaning about how rough riding his car was, I didn't have the heart to criticize the steering. But really, Al, don't you think this steer's unusually hard? I can't understand why they wouldn't put power steering.
Why, it's got power steering. The only thing is, Olds power steering doesn't function until you apply a lot of elbow grease to the steering wheel. Sometimes it's helping, and sometimes it isn't.
Oh, my heavens.
Of course, DeSoto power steering works all the time and does 80% of your muscle flexing for you.
It'd be terrible if Oldsmobile's power brakes were only part-time deals, too.
Well, yes, but as a matter of fact, if the power ever fizzles out on these Olds brakes, you're really left high and dry. The pedal travel is too short to give you enough mechanical leverage. DeSoto's power brakes allow normal pedal travel in case you ever need to depend on your own feet all of a sudden to stop the car. Those DeSoto Safeguard hydraulic brakes will really stop it, too. They have bigger drums and more lining area, and, of course, cycle bond linings instead of the old-style riveted type that Oldsmobile still uses. So our brakes pack more safety and longer wear. Those are DeSoto pluses that are certainly worth talking about to a prospect. Don't you think so, Ruthie?
Well, yes, but don't forget the big plus the prospect can see. You can use either foot on that extra-wide DeSoto brake pedal. All in all, it's obvious that DeSoto isn't just a bigger, smarter-looking car this year. It's got the Olds beat on a dozen different things that people want. I just can't understand why any DeSoto salesman wouldn't hammer away on those pluses, as you call them, to every single prospect who comes within earshot. In fact, Al, I still say, with the gorgeous cars you have to sell this year, it'll just be your own fault if you let Oldsmobile grab the ball again and run with it. So there.
Well, boss, I figure I'm as ready as I'll ever be to add that 98 owner to my DeSoto customer list. Ruthie and I borrowed a new Olds yesterday, and here's the list of pluses I made up.
Wow, how can you miss when you have a line of facts like this to back you up? Nice going, Al. Let me know if you need any help on the financial end.
You did it!
You did it.
You did it. Oh, Al, I'm so proud of you. That's a real feather in your cap.
course, I wouldn't tell Ruthie this, and I wouldn't tell the boss either, but honestly, this conquest selling isn't as tough as I thought. At least it's not tough when you have the better car, and we do have the plus points prospects want. Especially the prospects who own Oldsmobiles. This year, Olds owners rate a top place on my prospect list.